a Russian armored vehicle crossed the Kursk region, and an Azov drone destroyed it. Reconnaissance drone in flight. In the drone monitoring room, the Ukrainian Azov team observed Russian troop movements toward the building. The Ukrainian Azov tank, having received information about the enemy's presence, did this to eliminate them. The Azov tanks knew there were enemy troops inside the building and realized that the Azov tanks would show no mercy. This is what happened. From the enemy's perspective, they were still safe and were preparing missiles, but the Azov tanks showed no mercy. This time, the tanks moved cautiously. Every corner of the collapsed building was inspected by surveillance cameras and drones flying low over the area. Once the target was locked, Ukrainian troops immediately eliminated the enemy forces. Ukrainian armored vehicles continued to pound building after building where Russian troops were hiding. Each explosion shook the concrete walls, reducing the sturdy structures to dust and rubble. From a safe distance, the vehicle crews relentlessly loaded heavy shells into their cannons, one shot to clear the path, another to ensure there were no remaining threats. Each blast was no random attack. It was coordinated with the guidance of aerial drones monitoring every enemy movement. When thermal cameras revealed a hot spot inside the building, the artillery immediately locked onto the target and fired without hesitation. In a matter of minutes, the enemy hideout vanished from the map. Flames rose, marking the end of one point of resistance. Afterward, the infantry advanced, combing through the rubble, ensuring there was no more resistance left. For the Ukrainian forces, this was no mere tactical victory, it was a crucial step toward opening the next path to the enemy's defenses. The remaining troops in the shelter suddenly launched a close-range attack. From behind the rubble, the sound of automatic gunfire echoed, ricocheting off the half-destroyed walls. Bullets whizzed through shattered windows, forcing Ukrainian infantry to seek cover behind armored vehicles. The city of Pokrovsk in the Donetsk region has returned to the spotlight after a sharp escalation in fighting in recent days. Russian forces are reportedly attempting to expand their control toward the industrial zone and residential areas on the outskirts of the city, while Ukrainian forces continue to maintain their defensive positions. According to reports from several Ukrainian military sources, the Russian attack is taking place in small but repeated waves, supported by long-range artillery and airstrikes. The effort appears to be focused on cutting off the supply lines, connecting Pokrovsk with other cities west of Donetsk. The fighting in Pokrovsk is now one of the most intense on the Eastern Front, a Ukrainian military official was quoted as saying by local media. "Our troops are defending every block of buildings, while the enemy is trying to find a gap around the industrial zone." Meanwhile, drone footage circulating on social media shows extensive damage to the industrial area, with several large facilities burning after being hit by heavy artillery fire. Aerial activity over the city has also increased, with both sides using reconnaissance drones and FPVs to monitor and target enemy positions. Reports from the field indicate that Russian forces are attempting to expand their foothold by positioning infantry units among damaged buildings. However, any progress they make appears to be limited, as Ukrainian defenders are using concrete and rubble as defensive firing positions. The Ukrainian Ministry of Defense emphasized that the situation in Pokrovsk does not yet indicate a siege, despite the fighting taking place very close to the main supply route leading to the Dnieper. "We still control most of the supply routes and continue to strengthen our positions in the area," an official statement read. Pokrovsk holds high strategic value for both sides. The city is not only a crucial transportation hub in Donetsk, but also a gateway to central Ukraine. If it falls to Russia, the main supply route to eastern Ukraine could be significantly disrupted. There are currently no confirmed reports of casualties on either side. However, photos from the scene show extensive damage to civilian infrastructure, including residential areas and power lines damaged by artillery attacks. The fighting in Pokrovsk demonstrates that the conflict in Ukraine is far from over. While many international parties continue to push for a ceasefire, dynamics on the ground indicate a new escalation in the Donetsk region, which has once again become the main focus of the fighting. Amid the escalating fighting in the Donetsk region, particularly around Pokrovsk, Ukrainian forces are now demonstrating significant changes in their combat patterns and battlefield tactics. One key factor behind this change is the intensive military training provided by the United States and NATO member states over the past 2 years. Amid the escalating fighting in the Donetsk region, particularly around Pokrovsk, Ukrainian forces are now demonstrating significant changes in their combat patterns and battlefield tactics. One key factor behind this change is the intensive military training provided by the United States and NATO member states over the past 2 years. This training focuses not only on basic infantry skills, but also on coordination between ground, air, and armored units. Many of the Ukrainian soldiers now fighting on the front lines are graduates of joint training programs in Poland, Germany, and the United Kingdom under the direct supervision of Western military instructors. They are no longer fighting like they did in 2022, said one European defense analyst. They are now moving faster, more disciplined, and utilizing NATO's structured communications and tactics. One of the most obvious demonstrations of this training's impact is the way Ukraine operates standard NATO tanks, such as the German-made Leopard 2, A6, and the British Challenger 2. These tanks are equipped with high-precision firing systems and reactive armor capable of withstanding medium-range anti-tank missile attacks. In the field, these tanks are used not only as the main striking force, but also as infantry mobile cover and as attack coordination points. In operations around Pokrovsk, for example, Ukrainian armored units were seen working alongside reconnaissance drones and sniper teams to suppress Russian forces hiding in industrial areas. In addition to combat equipment, NATO combat doctrine is also being implemented. Ukrainian forces are now increasingly relying on combined arms tactics, a combination of tanks, infantry, artillery, and drones. This approach allows them to attack more efficiently and reduce personnel losses in open terrain. However, this major change comes with its own challenges. NATO tanks require complex spare parts and maintenance, as well as types of ammunition that are not always available domestically. Therefore, supply lines from Europe are crucial to maintaining the sustainability of Ukrainian combat operations. According to a Pentagon report, more than 60,000 Ukrainian soldiers have received training abroad since 2022, and the majority of them are now serving on the Donetsk and Zaporizhzhia fronts. "We are seeing the results of that training on the battlefield," said a U.S. Department of Defense official. "Ukrainian forces are more adaptable and able to effectively use modern technology against a larger force." With increased coordination and logistical support from the West, Ukraine is trying to contain Russian pressure on the Eastern Front while preparing for a measured counter-operation. Meanwhile, military observers believe that the use of tanks and NATO doctrine marks the biggest transformation of the Ukrainian military since the war began. On the 17th of February 2025, in Bydgoszcz, Poland, NATO and Ukraine inaugurated a joint training and analysis center called JTEC, short for Joint Analysis, Training and Education Center. This place is not just an ordinary training base, it's the official coordination center between the Ukrainian and NATO militaries to unify their working methods, strategies, and technologies. It could be said that through JTEC, Ukrainian troops have begun training directly under NATO standards. Not just theory, but actual combat training, from tactical communications, tank and drone coordination, to how to respond to modern artillery attacks. Previously, Ukraine was only given aid or equipment, but now it's different. Through JTEC, Ukraine is directly involved. They send soldiers, instructors, and even military analysts to the center. So it's no longer a one-way street, but a real joint training session with troops from NATO member countries. According to an official document from the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense, this collaboration gives them more equal status within the framework of joint exercises. This means not just participating, but also influencing how the training strategy is developed. It doesn't stop there. In December 2024, several Ukrainian instructors were also sent to Lithuania for NATO standard training. There, they learned to become non-commissioned officers, a kind of small team leader who is key in combat. They were taught how to lead, manage infantry movements, and communicate quickly under pressure. Furthermore, the European Union also intervened through the European External Action Service. They provided joint training modules so that all Ukrainian soldiers could adapt to NATO systems. Actually, the relationship between Ukraine and NATO has been going on for a very long time. Since 1994, Ukraine has been a member of the Partnership for Peace (PFP) program. From there, they began to gradually adapt their military systems so they would be compatible if they were to one day work alongside NATO forces in the field. Well, now it's a reality. With JTEC, that collaboration has leveled up not just support, but a real partnership in the defense sector. If you watch footage of the fighting in Donetsk or Zaporizhia now, you'll notice the way Ukrainian troops move, the way they attack with tanks, drones, and artillery is completely different from 2 years ago. That's the result of exercises like JTEC. They've begun using the doctrine of combined arms tactics, a modern NATO style of warfare that combines all combat elements into a single, rapid, coordinated unit. Now, Ukraine is no longer just a recipient of aid. They're standing on equal footing at NATO training tables, learning directly together, and even developing new tactics based on their own combat experience. JTEC is a tangible symbol that Ukraine and NATO are on the same path, not just comrades in arms, but strategic partners sharing one goal: strengthening joint defense in Eastern Europe. Previously, Ukraine received a lot of training and assistance from various countries, separately training abroad by the US, training by Canada, the UK, etc. But now, it's entering a new phase. Truly joint training with NATO, and institutions like JTEC are becoming the meeting point. This means Ukrainian soldiers are not just learning from NATO, but are starting to learn together within a jointly designed framework. This strengthens their position as partners, not just recipients. With Ukrainian instructors trained in Lithuania to NATO standards, their doctrine, training methods, tactics, and procedures are beginning to align with those of the alliance. This has several implications. Cross-border communication becomes smoother because they are accustomed to the same terminology, procedures, and controls. When Ukraine collaborates with NATO member states or receives support from them, adaptation is quicker. The combined arms doctrine, infantry plus tanks plus air plus drones, previously considered a NATO specialty, can be more easily implemented in Ukraine. JTEC isn't just a place for physical exercises. Its mandate includes analyzing field experiences, how Russia fought, how Ukraine fought, what worked, what didn't. These lessons will then be incorporated into NATO strategy and Ukrainian military operations. This means Ukraine has a say in how joint training and strategy are designed, not just a training object. This strengthens their capabilities.